I must say before my presentation comes online that it's a very special pleasure for me to be here. I used to be heading up the International School of Economics in Tbilisi, which is a sister organization of SITE, which means I've been coming often, speaking, listening, and enjoying our wonderful professional and social interactions. This time I'm coming from Tashkent, from Central Asia, which brings me to a point I want to make. Flying here took me longer than I wanted. I had to fly through Istanbul, which is maybe not the worst of places, and it took me the whole day, and I still have to plan for my return. And what is my point? The point is that anything we do in military terms or in economic warfare terms has something called collateral damage. And as I maybe hinted at, this is something we have to be aware of when analyzing or making suggestions as to what our policy should be going forward. And the whole point of my presentation, I think, is going to be very much focused on one particular aspect of such collateral damage. That is the much greater distance that suddenly emerged between Asia and Central Asia in particular, and the West. I think that distance has grown, not only in terms of flight hours, but economically and maybe in some other ways. Whereas Russia, which has made a major pivot to Asia following the imposition of sanctions and the war, is now all over the place. And this is what I'm going to show you in a few slides and pictures. This is Samarkand in Uzbekistan, in case anybody wondered. So there's something to be, you see the wording that up top. One often hears, Central Asian economies have proven resilient. The word resilient is in red. But as a fact of, the fact of the matter, as I will show you on the next slide, Central Asian economies are actually booming. It's not about resilience, it's about a boom. Now here I'm just showing you very quickly what are the growth rates that we are having in Central Asia. Last year and this year, the forecast, it's very high by any measure, and it's certainly higher than the average for what we call the EBRD countries of operation. So it's close to 5%, would have been even higher if not Kazakhstan, which is sort of having a great year, by the way, Kazakhstan this year, but it's still, it's a slow-moving giant that is dragging the average down. So talking of things that are improving, it's everything. I can say there's growth, there's currency stabilized, inflation has come down and peaked some time ago. Public debt declined as a share of GDP, and sometimes in absolute terms. Banks extremely profitable. I mean, they haven't been as profitable in their history, probably. Very liquid, capitalized. Tax revenues, it's like a quarter up on average, 25, even more. Some countries 30% up tax revenues. Politics, very stable situation for a change in Central Asia. Even countries like Kyrgyzstan, Kazakhstan, which have a tradition of having revolutions and turmoil. There is stability, which gives us opportunities to reform in areas that have been very sensitive. For example, tariffs, energy tariffs, for example. And a lot of good things happening as far as regional cooperation, integration is going on. And even the credit ratings by all agencies have now been improved for all Central Asian countries over the past 9 months, 2023. So all is good. Now, international trade, as we have seen indirectly, has been a key driver. So it's a little bit complicated to see on this chart, but basically what we see is a huge increase in imports. Some countries, it's really through the roof, like Kyrgyzstan, 70% increase in imports, maybe more, because as I will show you in a second, the actual numbers may be very different from what the official statistics show. And so do exports increase everywhere. Russia is driving the process, so it's really exports to Russia. Kyrgyzstan, 146% increase in 2022. That's 2.5 times, yeah, roughly increase in exports. And again, that's heavily underestimating the actual exports. Kazakhstan is very big because it's a big country, a very long border, thousands of kilometers. But the increase was not as significant. It's only 40, not as significant, 50% increase, but not like Kyrgyzstan. By the way, I'll be using Kyrgyzstan as a little bit of a case study, if you wish, just to see what the implications are. This is the slide showing that the real story can be even worse. So this is Chinese imports. Kyrgyzstan sits, just for you to understand, it's on the border between China and the Eurasian Economic Union. So it's a little country, but it's right at the border, has a super liberal regime and a lot of corruption at the border as well. And all the machinery that it takes to move goods across its territory. That's what the Kyrgyz have been doing for the last 30 years, nothing but that. And so the Chinese actual numbers, what the Chinese export statistics show, that there was an explosion. The red line is the Chinese explosion. The gray is also, whatever the color, is also showing increase, but it seems very small compared to, it's not small, it's very large, but it seems small compared to the Chinese figures. This is the story of intermediated trade. I'm showing you Germany, just one country. So this is the timeline. You see the invasion. You see German exports to Russia, red line, boom, going down and staying there, roughly flat. But exports to the world, very, well, not small, 33% increase in German exports to the world. But look at the four so-called CCA4. What is CCA4? These are Caucasus countries, Georgia, Armenia, and two countries in Central Asia, Kyrgyzstan, Kazakhstan. This is CCA4. So you see the huge increase. This is like, what is it? At some point it was 300% increase. Then it came down to only 166%, yeah? This is German exports. Look at Sweden. The same exactly picture. I just replicated it because I knew I'll be speaking to a Swedish audience. So just you can see your own situation. Your exports to Russia fell but stayed flat. Maybe the trucks, maybe something else. But this is Russia. World actually still a very small increase, 4%. The most latest data. But CCA4, 138% increase. Take Turkey as an example. Turkey is a friendly country according to Russian definition. So Turkey doesn't have a problem of exporting to Russia. So Turkey increases exports to Russia. That's the red line. And the blue line, 117% increase, is Central Asia. Just Central Asia as a whole without the Caucasus, okay? So that's Turkey. And 117% increase. China, a steady increase across the whole timeline. Overall, since invasion, 180% increase to Russia, red line. Blue is Central Asia, 163. So they have no issue trading with Russia, not at all. But Central Asia somehow also gets a share of the pie. Some people ask why China doesn't send things directly to Russia, why doesn't have to go over the mountains and maybe tunnels and go through Kyrgyzstan for that matter. I don't have a very good answer for that, but I think anything goes because there's so much demand in Russia. There's essentially a vacuum. So anybody who can bring anything to Russia is welcome. Talking of countries, and I'm back to my case here, my deep dive, Kyrgyzstan. So of the 4 CCA countries, the green line, Kyrgyzstan, the champion. Again, volumes are not so high. This is Germany. It's not so high. The volumes are growing incredibly, but it's still a very small country. So, but it's 1,000% increase. Okay, that's German exports. So 11 times. You know? Armenia is doing very well. Georgia, a country I know extremely well. I lived there for 15 years. Everybody have a finger in this pie. The Kyrgyz story, I promised you, this is a little map. You don't see Russia on this map because Russia is actually far away. But in order to go from Kyrgyzstan to Russia, you have to cross the entire Kazakhstan. You have to go a lot of kilometers on Kazakh roads and rail. But because of the very special circumstances of Kyrgyzstan, as I told you, it's a trading nation. That's what it is, smuggling and trading. So that's what they've been doing. They're very highly specialized in this domain. So they're the main profiteers in this circumstance. So they have a market, a big bazaar in Bishkek. Anybody who comes to Bishkek, you must visit. It's called Dordoy. It's essentially a showroom of Chinese, cheap Chinese merchandise, but that's a symbol of what Kyrgyzstan actually is. And there are trucks. I've seen the news recently that the import of trucks into Kyrgyzstan has went through the roof as well in 2023. Some of these are trucks that just travel to Russia. Some of these are actually traveling not empty, so the travel was loaded with goods and maybe also come back. So this is the story. Here is a little breakdown based on Kyrgyz statistics on what they are actually re-exporting or exporting. So in the green, the red circle shows you that most of the increase, it's a 120% increase. Hard to see, I bet, maybe not so much. It's the red dot shows the increase. The scale is on the right. So this is all about manufactured goods, machinery, transport, and other miscellaneous manufactured articles. So this is where increases have been the largest. All taken together, these manufactured goods, and they of course include some of the dual use or critical for war effort items. Again, we don't have the exact numbers, but they must be there in the total in the mass of product. So this is where they're way more than 50% of total Kyrgyz exports to Russia. By the way, Kyrgyzstan, interesting fact, fan fact, stopped publishing detailed trade data. So no more 10 digit, now it's 4 digit, which tells you something about the policy environment there. And in terms of specific items in which we've seen huge increases, measuring tools, electronic integrated circuits, metal drilling machinery, knives, cutting blades, tubes, pipes, hoses, data transmission equipment, telephones is a huge 2 minutes. Okay, cars, but just look at the numbers of cars. The red circles show you by how much car imports, not exports, have increased from 7,000 to 93,000. That includes trucks as well too. In 2023, just 9 months, by the way. And none of the exports of cars to Russia are recorded. So if you look at the numbers of exports of cars, it's very small. It's just a few hundred. Why? Because they just drive them into Kazakhstan and then Russia, and they have the ability to just register these cars with the authorities in Russia without ever recording them as exported items. This is the textile story. So it's not just re-export. There's a huge boom in textile in Kyrgyzstan. I visited the Dordoy market in the summer. Every trader I interviewed, 3 times increase in textile production. So this is not about China. This is not about sanctions. Just the fact that lots of Western companies voluntarily left the Russian market creates demand for cloth, for fabrics, for a yarn, for anything that you need for production and to wear. So all of the things, you have thousands of increases in exports, thousands of percent, and also authentic Kyrgyz production is going up. A few more slides just to give you, it's not just trade. There are lots of other ways in which Central Asia became dependent on Russia. And as I said, the linkages only got stronger. One of them is the dependence on money transfers from Russia. So there was a tremendous increase. It used to be only labor remittances. Now it's just transfers of money because for circumvention of the financial sanctions, lots of Russians and businesses opened accounts in Central Asia and Georgia and Caucasus. And they usually use plastic cards, credit cards from this country. So in the end, what it did, a lot of liquidity, including foreign currency, is floating around Central Asia. Uzbekistan, 110% increase in remittances of money transfers. Now it's 23% of GDP, just to give you, it's huge. It's just difficult to even conceive how large it is. The number of labor migrants, that's the flip side of remittances. So in 2022, Russia published the number. There were 3.5 million new labor migrants entering and registering. The stock is much larger. The stock could be somewhere around 10 million. Of workers, so it's able-bodied men and women, not including even children. But the new arrivals were 3.5 million. 90% of this number is Central Asia, about half Tajikistan, about 25% is sorry, half is Uzbekistan, 25% Tajikistan, about 15% Kyrgyzstan. And the unemployment rate in Russia is just, I don't think they have ever had such a low unemployment. I don't know, there's zero unemployment pretty much. I mean, just people in transition between jobs. This creates even more demand for anybody who can work. Now, this brings me, I'll leave you with that on Central Asia. Just one more point I would like to make. Nobody spoke about the human resources of Russia as a vulnerability. I believe this is the one and single, maybe, binding constraint on Russian economic performance, maybe also military. This is something that anybody who wants to undermine, this is what one should focus on. Because Russia is bleeding people in the literally and really. The unemployment rate that you see, this just shows you how binding it is. So they're working 24/7, they're working longer hours. If we can encourage migration out of Russia instead of blocking it by requiring even ever more visas and I don't know what, the more we encourage migration out of Russia, the better off Ukraine will be, because Russia depends on its own people to deliver the results, and this is where they are really vulnerable. So many have left. Now some of them are coming back. I know of at least one initiative by Zhanna Nemtsova, the daughter of late Boris Nemtsov, a foundation that she has, is specifically looking for ways to help Russians who left stay in the West, stay in Central Asia and the Caucasus country, make a productive investment and start their own businesses. That's the way to win in this war, not necessarily, and I really believe it, not necessarily only through the sanctions prism. Think of other ways. Be creative, because beating the dead horse of sanctions may not get you there, may not get you where you want to get. Thank you very much.